तो बेसिकली आज हम जो डिस्कस करने वाले हैं वो है द मिक्चुरेशन प्रोसेस और द मिक्चुरेशन रिफ्लेक्स. सो फर्स्ट थिंग इज we have to know that what is the micturition. Micturition is the normal physiological process through which our urinary bladder can fill with the urine. Once the bladder will fill with the urine, by the opening of internal urethral sphincter and by the opening of external urethral sphincter, the urine will easily discharge from the urinary bladder into the periphery or into the environment. Whole this process is known as micturition. Now, when we talk about the micturition reflex or the reflex of micturition, this is another thing. Remember one thing, if anybody will ask you anything regarding the reflex, at that time one thing should be straight on your brain, and this thing is that reflex. That means this is interconnected with our nervous system, which is present in our body. Anything is responsible for the reflex is known as the nervous system. Now, in case of micturition reflex, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system as well as the somatic nervous system will control this reflex. Before going to know anything regarding the micturition reflex, at first we have to know two things, and these two things is that the nervous system which is responsible for this micturition reflex and the structure of urinary bladder or the anatomy of urinary bladder, because if we don't know anything regarding the structure of urinary bladder, we will not able to understand that how the micturition will occur or the process of excretion of urine through which the urinary bladder become empty. Now let me draw here. This is our nervous system. This is our nervous system जो कि इस micturition reflex के लिए responsible है. तो इस nervous system को हम इस nervous system के दो types हैं. एक है somatic nervous system and another one is autonomic nervous system. We can further divide this autonomic nervous system into two types, and these types, one is the sympathetic nervous system and another one is the parasympathetic nervous system. Remember one thing, among of these two types of nervous system, somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Somatic nervous system is under voluntary control. That means you can control this nervous system, but the autonomic nervous system is fully involuntary. And this autonomic nervous system can be divided into two types. One is the sympathetic nervous system and one is the parasympathetic nervous system. We will discuss the function of sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system in our video lecture. Now, the one more thing which we have to know is that the structural composition of urinary bladder. So let me draw over here. Suppose this is our urinary bladder. And this is our urethra. This is our urinary bladder, which is covered by a thick smooth muscle layer, and this smooth muscle layer is known as the detrusor muscle layer. And in this urinary bladder there is two sphincter. One is the internal urethral sphincter and another one is the external urethral sphincter. Mainly these three things is responsible for the micturition reflex or the micturition process. By the contraction or relaxation of detrusor muscle, the urinary bladder become relaxed or contract. And when the internal urethral sphincter and the external urethral sphincter become closed, the urine will not able to discharge from the urinary bladder to the periphery. When the internal urethral sphincter and the external urethral sphincter become closed or become contract, at that time the urine will not able to pass through the urethra to the periphery. The urine will not able to pass. But once the internal urethral sphincter and the external urethral sphincter will open and the detrusor muscle become relaxed, at detrusor muscle become contract, at that time the urine will easily pass through the urethra and go into the periphery. Now let's talk about the full process of micturition reflex. At first I have to draw something. Let me draw here. It's the part of the central nervous system. It's the spinal cord. This is part of spinal cord. We can divide our spinal cord. Whole this structure is the part of central nervous system. And if you consider this portion as our spinal cord, then we will find that our spinal cord is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 segment. Total 4 segment our spinal cord is divided. And from here to here, the segment is known as the cervical region. And from the in portion of cervical region, from here to here, this is known as the thoracic region. And from the in portion of thoracic region, the lumbar region will be started. And this portion is known as the lumbar region, and the last portion of our spinal cord is known as the sacral region. This is our part of central nervous system, and this is our pontine center. I will discuss about this center in my video. And this is our cerebral cortex, which is present in our brain. Cerebral cortex, which will also be responsible for this reflex. Now, among these four segment, or the four part of the spinal cord, the part which will be responsible for this reflex is only the sacral region, mainly the sacral region and the thoracolumbar region, which is considered from the T11 segment to the L2. T11 to L2. Suppose consider this portion is the thoracolumbar region. Cervical region is not highly necessary for this micturition reflex, but the thoracolumbar region and the sacral region is highly important for the micturition reflex. So this is sacral region, this is thoracolumbar region, but cervical region is not necessary for this reflex. Mainly this two segment is responsible. Now the portion thoracolumbar is started from T11 and into the L2. And the sacral region, the S2, S3 and S4 segment of spinal cord is responsible for this micturition reflex. So this is the thoracolumbar region, this is the sacral region of spinal cord. So let me draw a general structure, the spinal cord, so that you people will easily able to understand. This is the spinal cord, the segment. Okay, so let me draw over here our urinary bladder. This is our urinary bladder, and this is the internal urethral sphincter, and this is the external urethral sphincter, and this is the remaining portion. In the body of the urinary bladder, a smooth muscle is present, which I have drawn over here is the detrusor muscle, and this is the internal sphincter. I also drawn it. This is the internal sphincter, and this is the external sphincter, which is this. Now let me draw the connection between the central nervous system and the urinary bladder. Remember one thing: when the urinary bladder is filled with a very little amount of urine, suppose 5 to 10 ml of urine is present in this urinary bladder. Now when the amount of urine is very low, when the amount of urine is very low, when little amount of urine is present in the urinary bladder, at that time the sensation of nerve, the sensation of excretion of urine which will pass through the sensory nerve will pass a very little amount of sensation. When little amount of urine is present in the urinary bladder, a very little amount of sensation will pass through the sensory nerve, and this portion of the sensory nerve will ascend into the sacral segment of the spinal cord. It will go up into the sacral segment of the spinal cord and make a synapse into the another neuron, and this neuron will end into a ganglion which is known as the inferior mesenteric ganglion, in the short form IMG, inferior metacentric ganglion. From here a sensory neuron has arisen and it will carry a very little amount of sensation into the sacral region, and from there this neuron is synapsed with the another neuron, and the next neuron will end into the inferior metacentric ganglion, and from this ganglion another neuron will be arised. This neuron is the part of our sympathetic nervous system. From the inferior metacentric ganglion, the sympathetic nervous system will be arised, and this neuron will be further subdivided into two portions. One part will go for the cell body, the body of urinary bladder, which is covered by a detrusor muscle, which is a smooth muscle, and the another portion of sympathetic nervous system will go for the internal urethral sphincter. Now, the sensory fiber which has edged from the body of urinary bladder and carry the sensation of amount of urine which is present into the urinary bladder into the sacral region and make a synapse with another region. Now, the another part of this sensory neuron will go up, and I have made a mistake. The synapse will form here, and the neuron will go up into the thoracolumbar region, and from here it will make another synapse and end into the inferior metacentric ganglion, which is simply known as the IMG. So I'm making mistake, so now it's okay. Sensory neuron has rise from the urinary bladder and it go into the sacral region of the spinal cord, and from here it will make a synapse with another neuron, and this neuron will ascend up and make another synapse with another neuron, and this neuron will end into the inferior metacentric ganglion, and from this ganglion the sympathetic nervous system will arise, and it will further divide it into two parts. One part is go for the body of urinary bladder, that is the detrusor muscle, and another portion is go for the internal urethral sphincter. So my mistake was that I have drawn this portion of neuron from the sacral region. The correction is that it will be drawn over the thoracolumbar region. So this part of neuron will arise from the thoracolumbar region, not from the sacral region. Now, the another part of this sensory nerve will go for the pontine center. Now, in case of pontine center, the pontine center is consist with two parts. One is responsible for pontine storage center, and the next one, or the last one, is responsible for pontine micturition center. Now, the sensory nerve, which has transmit the impulse of the urinary bladder, that a very little amount of urine is present in the urinary bladder. Now we have to store more amount of urine in the urinary bladder. So it will activate the Pontine storage center and suppress the Pontine micturition center. This fiber will activate the Pontine storage center and suppress the Pontine micturition center. And another nerve fiber from this sensory nerve will go into our cerebral cortex, which is the main region of our central nervous system. Now, once the sensation will arise into our brain, the brain will make a decision, the cerebral cortex will make a decision, and the decision of brain will pass by using the motor nervous system. This is what about the motor nervous system. The decision of brain will pass through the motor nervous system, and once the motor nervous system will descend down, it will further activate the Pontine storage center, because we have to fill this bladder. That's why we have to activate the Pontine storage center. So Pontine storage center is activated by two times. In the very first time, it will be activated by the sensory nervous system, which is started from here, and in the second time, it will be activated by the motor nervous system. That means by the decision of brain. The Pontine storage center will be activated further, and the another portion of this nerve fiber descend down and may activate the sympathetic nervous system. It will make activate the sympathetic nervous system. That means the sympathetic nervous system has also activated by two times. In the very first time, it will be activated by the sensory nervous system, and in the second time, it will be activated by the motor nervous system. Now, what is the function of sympathetic nervous system? What will happen by the activation of sympathetic nervous system, or what will happen by the suppression of sympathetic nervous system? Now, remember one thing. In this case, when the sympathetic nervous system activate the two portion, this is the two portion of sympathetic nerve. The very first portion is go for the body of urinary bladder and into the detrusor muscle. Now, detrusor muscle have a very special kind of receptor, which is known as the beta 3 adrenergic receptor. Detrusor muscle have very special type of receptor, which is known as the beta 3 adrenergic receptor, and this neuron will release a special kind of neurotransmitter, which is known as the neural epinephrine. When the sympathetic nervous system will be activated by the sensory nerve or by the motor nerve, it will be bind with the beta 3 adrenergic receptor, which is present in the cell body of it's not the cell body, it is the body of urinary bladder. It will bind to the detrusor muscle, which is present in the body of urinary bladder, and it will release a neural epinephrine. When the neural epinephrine will be released, it will be responsible for the influx of K plus or potassium ion, which is responsible for the relaxation of blood. When this nerve will be bind with the beta 3 adrenergic receptor, which is present in the detrusor muscle, it will release the neural epinephrine, and neural epinephrine will be responsible for the influx of potassium ion, and this potassium ion will be responsible for the relaxation of urinary bladder. And the second portion of the sympathetic nervous system will bind over here to the internal urethral sphincter, and this sphincter have also a special kind of receptor, which is known as the alpha 1 adrenergic receptor, and this portion also release the neural epinephrine. But in this case, it will not relax the internal urethral sphincter. It will contact the internal urethral sphincter and close the bladder, because if the internal urethral sphincter become open, at that time urine will not able to store into the urinary bladder, to store this urine into the urinary bladder, it is highly necessary to close up the internal and both the external urethral sphincter. Now, in case of external urethral sphincter, it will control by voluntarily. It will control by ourselves, and this is obviously the somatic nervous system. Now, the somatic nervous system will arise. At first, this portion of nerve will go for the activation of sympathetic nervous system, and the another portion of this nerve will come into the descend down into the sacral region, and from the sacral region, the somatic nerve will be arise, and it will bind into the external sphincter. And the external sphincter having a special kind of receptor, which is known as the nicotinic type 1 receptor. Now, in this case, the somatic nervous system, when activated, it will bind with the nicotinic type 1 receptor, and it will also responsible for the close-up of external urethral sphincter. So, when both the external urethral sphincter and the internal urethral sphincter become closed, and when the urinary bladder become relaxed, the urine will easily able to fill into the urinary bladder. But when the internal urethral sphincter and the external urethral sphincter both become open and the urinary bladder remain contact, at that time urine will not able to fill into our urinary bladder. And also, if the urinary bladder remains relaxed, but the external urethral sphincter and the external urethral sphincter and the internal urethral sphincter remain open, during this time also the urine will not able to fill into our urinary bladder, because due to the opening of the internal and external urethral sphincter, the urine can easily pass from the urinary bladder to the periphery. Now, this is whatever the sympathetic nervous system, or which is responsible for the micturition reflex, or the process through which bladder will fill with urine. Now, once the bladder become full, when the bladder become full with the urine, that means near about 500 to 600 ml of urine, when it will fill near about 500 to 600 ml of urine, at that time the whole process becomes suppressed. That means the sympathetic nervous system become suppressed, and the parasympathetic nervous system become activated. In this case, when the bladder become full with urine, that means when the urinary bladder is consist with a high amount of urine, at that time very high amount of sensation will pass through the sensory nervous system, and at that time it will not make a synapse as it before. It will not make a synapse with the sympathetic nervous system. At that time, it will directly ascend, and it will activate the pontine. It will not activate the pontine micturition center, pontine storage center. It will suppress the pontine storage center. It will go up and suppress the pontine storage center when the bladder become full. It will suppress the pontine storage center, but it will not activate the pontine micturition center. It will just suppress the pontine storage center, and the another portion which is go into the cerebral cortex, that bladder become full with the urine. We have to excrete the urine from our body. At the time, the decision of the cerebral cortex will pass through the motor nerve, and this nerve is responsible for the activation of this black nerve, which is the motor nerve, is responsible for the activation of pontine micturition center, and it will further suppress the pontine storage center and active the pontine micturition center. And at that time, the another portion of this fiber will go and suppress the sympathetic nervous system. It will at the very first time it has activated the sympathetic nervous system to store this urine, but when the Parasympathetic, when the urinary bladder become full, the parasympathetic nervous system has activated, and due to this, the sympathetic nervous system becomes suppressed by the motor neuron, which is come from the cerebral cortex. And the next portion of this motor nervous system has synapse over here, and from the sacral region, the somatic nervous system has arisen, and it will also suppress the somatic nervous system. Now, due to the suppression of the sympathetic nervous system by the motor nerve, the whole process becomes suppressed. That means when the sympathetic nervous system has suppressed by the motor nerve, at that time this fiber will not able to bind with the beta 3 adrenergic receptor and will not able to secrete the neural epinephrine, and the internal sphincter which has closed due to the binding of the sympathetic nerve fiber with the alpha 1 adrenergic receptor. At that time, both this fiber becomes suppressed, and due to this, the internal sphincter which was closed, it become open, and the urinary bladder which was relaxed, at that time it become contract. That means the urinary bladder becomes due to the suppression of sympathetic nervous system, and due to the suppression of the somatic nervous system, the external urethral sphincter which was previously closed, it now become open. Once both these two sphincter will be open and the urinary bladder become contract, at the time the urine will easily
discharge from the bladder to the periphery or outer environment. Now, in case of some physiological issue like when people become old, at the time they actually lose their tightness of external sphincter. Due to this, they will excrete their urine anywhere, anytime. And there are also some physiological issue like automatic bladder. In this case, the person actually lose the connection between the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system, and when they lose the connection between the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system, at that time actually the sensory impulse will not able to transmit into our central nervous system, and as well as the motor impulse will not also able to transmit into the peripheral micturition center, that is our urinary bladder. And due to the absence of motor nervous system, after filling the bladder in a certain amount of by a certain amount of urine, it will excrete this urine anywhere, anytime. And this is the physiological condition which I discussed in this video lecture. Anyway, this is what about today's lecture. In my upcoming lecture, I will discuss like the countercurrent mechanism and many other things which is related to our renal physiology. So today's lecture is in.